Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us this Sunday for episode 7 of the Strat Talk with your host, myself, Adex, OG Trades, and Zeus Trades. In today's episode, we have the host of the Penny Lane podcast, Penny Lane Blayne. She's here to talk about her journey as a trader, balancing her life as a trader and her other activities she has going on, her thoughts on the strat as well. And she's also here to talk about her trading style. As you already know, the title of the show is called The Strat Talk, but we want to bring other traders and offer different perspectives and tools that can possibly help you succeed in your trading. For those of you that are new to the show, I am one of the admins of AdexTrades. I started trading before the pandemic started, and I've been trading the strat for almost 2 years. One of my goals as the leader of the group is teaching the strat to as many people as possible to help others become self-sufficient traders. I'll now take it over to Zeus so he can give a brief introduction of himself as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. I go by Zeus. I'm an analyst in AdexTrades community. I've been trading for about 3 years now, and I started as an investor originally in 2019 and transitioned to options in fall of 2020. I primarily used to be a flow trader, but transitioned to the strat as the market conditions changed. I'll now hand it over to OG Trades so he can provide a brief introduction.
Man, this is episode 7, and it's sounding more and more professional every single time. You guys are killing it, man. So you guys, for those of you that don't know me, I've traded for at least the last 13 years, going on 14 soon. And trading price action's been key to me because the first 3 years I traded, I was not profitable. So I understand the pain that everybody's going through. And allowing us to do these episodes to hear from different traders, especially traders like Penny, that's so transparent with everything she does trading wise. Like, she's got some bigger cojones than most men out here that will not post things that are going wrong in their lives. But yeah, it's awesome to be able to get to do this and to meet other traders. So let's take it over to Penny.
Hey
Thank
guys.
you, man.
What's up, Penny?
Appreciate it.
How are ya?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Just got back from a birthday party for a 7-year-old. So, big weekend here in Atlanta.
Nice. And for the listeners who don't know who you are, can you just give us a little bit of background of yourself and, who is
Sure.
Penny Lane Blayne? Yeah.
Sure. My name's Blayne. I have been trading just over 2 years. I have a podcast called the Penny Lane Podcast that's a little bit over a year old. I started in penny stocks, and then I've gone to options now, and since January 2022, I've been only trading options, and I was day trading options, and I'm doing a little bit more swing trading with options now, and just trying to spend a little bit less time staring at the screen, because it sort of seems like the harder I try, the worse I do. So that's where I am with my trading.
Nice. And what made you transition from penny stocks to options?
Well, probably the biggest thing that happened was I was really struggling to stay above PDT, and it was like a mental game where I would drop below PDT, and then I would put more money in my account and get like really, really down on myself, and ultimately just decided to convert it to a cash account and day trade in the cash account. And of course, if you trade options in a cash account, all the cash settles the next day. And it was a step that I really did not want to take. And I'm so happy that I did, because it took all that pressure off.
So what kind of trader would you describe yourself as? A flow trader, a scalper, a swing trader, a pattern trader?
I like patterns. I trade a lot off of levels. And I guess that they're like, the way that I usually describe my trades are like intraday swing trades. So I really like to be in a trade maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. So it's more than a scalp, I guess. And it would just be like breaking above and below key levels. I really like flags, especially longer term flags. That's what I do.
That term intraday swing trading. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's no longer a day trade. It's just a swing for a couple hours, and you're good.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, with with your podcast and everything, and how transparent you are on Twitter, do you feel like it puts a little bit more pressure on yourself, or do you feel like it's almost like therapy to you?
Um, sorry. I think that it can be both things at once. Um, certainly when guys, please. Certainly when things aren't going well, it's really hard to be honest about it. And then when things are going well, it's sort of great because you get the whole community behind you and stuff. Um, if I could start over and do it all again, I'm not sure that I would have put myself in such a public spot, because not only do I feel like I'm letting me down, but I feel like I'm letting my followers down and all the people who listen to the podcast. And then um, it's also been tough because I've been like, well, no one is going to want to listen to my podcast if I'm not doing well or not profitable. So it's just a lot of pressure, but I'm here now and this is sort of the journey that I chose. And I do think that eventually, if I can get it really figured out and become profitable, then like all of this will be so much more than worth it, especially being a woman. um I think if people will have seen how hard the journey is and seen the truth of how long it takes and how hard the journey is, and then I don't think that anyone will question it eventually. They'll be like, no, it took her 3 years and like there were some hard years in there. It won't, I don't know. I'll get to own it in a nice way, I think.
Going off of that, so there's this whole thing about like traders posting their P&Ls, on the internet, and you do so, and you're very transparent about it. Would you recommend that for other traders as well, to maybe because it adds some level of accountability as well, or no, whatever seems fit to whatever you'd want to do?
Well, I have my little like group of people who a lot of them do post their P&Ls and a lot of them don't. And honestly, I can't really give any advice one way or the other. I think it's great when people do, and I totally understand when people don't. Um, I think a really hard thing to do is to start off doing it and then stop doing it. That's kind of like, if you're going to do it, you got to do it, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. But do you think that can lead to a toxic environment? Like, for example, you're doing well for a couple of months and then you're not doing well, and then all of a sudden you have these trolls on Twitter that are making fun of you, saying that you're not profitable, and then that could lead to like a mental spiral down for yourself, like emotionally. Um, because of that reason, would you say like don't even start, don't start, or that's something that you're just gonna have to deal with if you want to post?
I think probably as a beginner trader who's not consistently profitable, I would probably recommend not doing it, because it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself in an environment that's already the most stressful and like pressure filled environment I mean, I I think that a lot of times is like being a ER trauma surgeon or something. Like it's just a very, very, very stressful environment, and things can spiral very quickly. And I don't know why you would need or want to put any more pressure on yourself. I'm not, I think I would give myself some grace. That'd be my advice.
100% agree with that. So, what would you say you struggled with the most as a beginner trader?
Following other people's calls.
You struggled
Okay,
with
so,
in following it, or because you were following other people's calls that led to you being struggling as a trader?
Um, Both. Like, I would just I would take other people's calls, and then I would convince myself that because they had a ton of followers on Twitter or because they had a role in a Discord or something, that they knew better than me. And probably in the beginning, um, everyone did have a lot more experience than I did, but I would take what they were saying and place a lot more value on it than what I thought myself. And then when things didn't go well, like obviously it was, I'd have to blame myself. And like, I never blamed anyone else. I was like, that was so stupid. Why'd you take that call? And then I would sort of convince myself that it was because I like didn't know enough to find my own plays. And that all was a very toxic um, place to be. But, I mean, I don't know, like you have to learn somewhere. So I don't really know what advice I would give to not do that initially, but it made me like very, very, very angry because I would like trust these people, and then I would take the calls, and then the calls wouldn't work out, and I would just be angry.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I know, or I think that I could speak for traders and some people who are in the audience, especially newer traders that started out, with other people's call outs, going to these big Discord groups, going to these big people with these big Twitter following, and assuming that because they have a big following that they knew more than us. And like I was that trader as well. When I first started out, I was looking at others' call outs, seeing because they knew what to do, or I assumed that they knew what to do, so I would trust them. And ultimately, I think that's what leads to like I don't want to say this with a fact, but I think it leads to a lot of traders' demise because of the fact that you don't know what you're necessarily getting into. You don't know, you're just taking plays. You don't know the reason why it's breaking this level. You don't know where you're supposed to be taking profits. And the one thing that I always tell traders, the reason why I don't necessarily like doing call outs as well, is because the person who's calling out that play, ultimately, they're going to protect their capital as well. So when they're going to be reaching like a level of resistance, they're going to be getting out of the play. And by the time they get out of the play, that is when they let you know that that the play is done, right? So by the time that you as a trader are trying to get out of the play, it's already down 20%. So I always ask myself, I said, why am I relying on somebody else who's going to be getting out of a play? And I'm not saying all people do this, but I'm like, if I am that person, like if I was in a large position, right? And I knew that we were going to be reaching this level, I'm probably going to be getting out of the play and then alerting the rest of my group members. So if that's the case, I think it is best for traders to actually know what they're getting into, when they should be taking their profits, knowing the exact levels where they should be cutting their profits or hitting their stop loss. Because if you do rely on somebody else, that's it's your port. You shouldn't be relying on somebody else's if it's your money. And that's what I have to say about that. So I'm glad that you do bring that up because I do think that once you get away from, following and just literally relying on somebody else's to make your money, I think it'll be beneficial at the end of it.
Yeah, I think I don't know. We all come together and form community and hang out and try to help each other. And I think that's all well and good. I think that's great. Actually, I've met some of my very best friends on Twitter. Some of them are in the audience, which is awesome to see. Thank you for joining. But at the end of the day, like it is a very, very lonely pursuit that you really have to go on by yourself. And I just like genuinely truly believe that.
Yeah, I think to add to that is, I started trading before there was like FinTwit, before there were these discords with everybody on there, and you're absolutely right that it's a very lonely pursuit when you're trying to be a retail trader. Even if you have somebody that you're close with that maybe gave you some advice that's almost comparable to some of these conversations that we've had here with people that are doing call outs and things, and whether it works for them, then great, but it might not work for you because you don't understand the reasons why that person entered the trade to begin with. And that's kind of when I entered my journey, like I'm completely transparent that, for 3 years I was not profitable. And, I don't want other people to spend 3 years trying to figure it out. So when I found Discord and I found these communities where I'm no longer by myself trading lonely in my office and I can talk with other people, it became fun again. It like reinvigorated it. But there's so much misinformation out there with people trying to take advantage of others that either want to learn how to trade and not quite sure, and they're just looking to take advantage of that. Where that's why I've, in the last few months, I've really made a push to try and debunk a lot of things. And, lucky enough to go on your, podcast and on Strat Soldiers Weekend Shift on Saturday with the Sepia group, and things are starting to snowball. But I do like the community atmosphere that you're talking about. It's just that you, in a way, you have to kind of protect yourself a little bit, and there's no real, you have to be a good barometer of BS to try and figure it out. And not only are you trying to figure out the market, but you're trying to figure out who's legit and not, and that's kind of a scary proposition.
Yep, totally.
So
Oh yeah,
go ahead,
continue.
Adex.
I was gonna say, so like in this fintech community, like just going off of what you said, how do you find, like for that newer trader, how do you find who's legit or not? How do you find that good source of information, and actually, take the bad information from mix it with the good? Like, what would you recommend?
Ah, that's a really tough question. Um, I guess it's sort of similar to the way that I find podcast guests. And the way I do that is by following someone and then just monitoring what they say for several months, really. I try to like really take everything with a grain of salt and weed out people so that the people I interview and bring on are like the best of the best. And but I don't know. I mean, it's so easy on Twitter to act like you're doing a lot better than you are. I don't have a good answer to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's kind of key, is that even all the homework you do, you still at the end of the day don't really know. But that's why you have quite a few people that are willing to give out content and information that, like, they're not looking to get anything out of you. And I think
Right.
once, there's those people that legitimately want to help, and they're not gonna hit you up on Twitter in a DM with like, "Hey, enter my Telegram," because then that's obviously somebody trying to get something out of you. But at the same token, like, you can talk out of both sides of your mouth, because with that content that you're giving that is free, that's still your time that you're giving to people, taking away from your own life. Where I understand that people want to get some compensation out of it, but for the most part, there's a good group of people out there that are willing to just give information. And if you're willing to weed through all that information that they give out for free, all the content is there. It's up to you whether you want to pay for a service or not. But I think that's kind of my barometer, is like, okay, if this person's constantly putting out content and information that's easily accessible, and it just takes somebody that really wants to do it to kind of sift through all those YouTube videos and tweets and examples of trades and all those things, where you can do your homework on your own, and that nobody's forcing you to have to buy anything or subscribe to anything, then that's kind of my gauge. And that's, we do a lot of that stuff in the Adex group. And we constantly putting out some sort of content, like you're putting out all that content, and you have ads, and you have people that you have sponsors, because you need to be able to put out a product, but yet the content is there and it's free. And if, as long as people are willing to listen to all the episodes, because you guys have a lot in a year. I was surprised when you said it was a year. I was like, oh my god, how many episodes do you do?
I know. We do
Where
2 a week, and
Yeah,
and they're an hour a piece, so 2 hours a week of us talking.
yeah,
And I've always been very, 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 very hesitant to ask anybody for any money at all. and that is a very delicate balance between trying to get money and put out everything for free, but then there's also production cost. The podcast isn't free, and it's just such a delicate line of like, how do I not lose money making this while not taking money from my listeners, and also making sure that the product is something that's worth listening to. That's all been so much to figure out.
Just going off of that, how do you even find the time to even be a trader, have the time to do 2 hours of podcasts a week? Like, what's your time schedule like, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. I get up. I actually am a pretty late sleeper, and I have 2 kids. So my husband's like very nice in the morning to let me do everything I need to do. But I get up around 7, and then I like to be very intentional about my day. So I'll write out like my gratitudes for the day before. And then I like to list some goals, some long-term goals, and then daily goals. And then I have like a little book that I like to read in the morning. So I maybe spend 30 to 40 minutes just doing all that and trying to get centered for the day. And then my husband takes my kids to school, which is great. So after they leave, I go on a little walk around the neighborhood. And right now I'm listening to Jared Tendler's book, like The Mental Side of Trading, I think it's called. And he came on the podcast, and I thought he was just really incredible. So I usually do listen to a trading book on my walk. So I walk about half an hour and then get home, and I really like trading the open. And if everything goes great, I can be done trading by 10:30 or so. So I'll wrap that up and then get dressed for the day, eat some lunch. I'm also an artist, so I try to go to the studio in the afternoon if I can. And then I also have a job, so I need to fit in some time during the day to do some work. And then my favorite time to record a podcast is about 3 in the afternoon, because like power hour has been such a joke recently that most people are done by 3. So that way I can record the podcast and be able to get some kind of dinner ready and spend time with my kids at night. But I'm very scheduled, and I really, really stick to that schedule, because there was a while when I was doing the podcast where I wasn't able to spend as much time with my kids as I wanted to. And it just became like I was resenting having to do the podcast. And I don't know, I never want to take away from my kids' time. So I actually am thinking that next season I might cut back to 1 podcast a week, just because I'm not going to get back this time with them. And I did think that it was important the first year to do 2 a week, just to establish ourselves in the space and make people know they could rely on us and get good content every week. But I think we've done that. And the name of the game now is more longevity. So I need to make sure that I don't burn out, because I hope that I can keep the podcast going another 10 years. Like, I really, really like it. And I think we have a great thing going, but I need to get a little more balance in my life. But I wanted to build it. And I did build it. Like, we're ranking in the top business and investing podcasts now. We have an incredible following. We have incredible guests coming on. And so now that it's launched, I'm going to try to take a little bit of a step back and, be more of a mom. And I have amazing co-hosts who have offered to take over some of the shows. So my friend Ellis Dillinger, who hosts a lot of the shows, just did his first one all on his own. And some of the other co-hosts have things that they want to do on their own, which I think, like, that would make me so proud to see them like grow up into their own co-host as well. So, or their own host. So anyway, I'm very excited about the future of the podcast.
What inspired you to start the Penny Lane podcast?
Honestly, I wanted to go on Penny's Going in Raw. that was my main, that's why I started it. Like I would watch Dan back in the day just being crazy, like back when everyone was swinging SPAC, SPAQ, and it was tanking, and Dan was shaving his head, and they started their podcast, and it seemed so like rock and roll and like like let's stick it to the man. We've got this podcast, and I just thought what they were doing was so cool. I wanted to go on, and I was like, I'm just a girl who doesn't know how to trade, who's 15 years older than them. Like they're never going to invite me on. But somehow I've never, I think it's from being an artist. Like in being an artist, you have to work so, so hard in finding a voice and finding your truth and really, really sticking to what you know and your heart is right and good. And you put a lot of value on your voice. And somehow I never had any confidence issues with like, oh, I don't deserve a voice in this space, or I don't deserve a podcast, or I don't deserve to have people listen to me. I felt very confident from the beginning, possibly overconfident, because I've gotten some Twitter DMs recently that were like, oh my God, those first episodes were so horrible or so cringy, or like I couldn't possibly even listen. It was so bad. And they were like, but for whatever reason, I stuck with you. And they always follow it up with like, oh my God, what you're doing is incredible. But if you don't start, like if I didn't start a year ago and work through the cringiness, then I wouldn't have like a top ranked podcast right now, right? I'd still be sitting in my room being like, oh, geez, I wish I had a podcast. So that's always my advice is like, it's always going to be hard. And the first product is always going to be raw and gross and cringy and just, I don't know. And another thing I always like to say, brought to you by Ed Sheeran, who I think is incredible. But I watched a documentary, and he was saying that when he writes a song, he equates it to turning on an old water tap, and like the things that come out are like pebbles and rusty water and mud, and it takes a little while for the faucet to run before like pure good water comes out. And he's like, that's how I write a song, is I have to get all the bad stuff out of the way, and then eventually the pure water will come out. And I feel like that's where we are in the podcast. But if you don't turn the tap on, and I feel like that about my trading too, like I've just now gotten into trading a style that I know is mine. I know it's not anybody else's. I know I'm not following anyone's calls. I know that what I'm doing is like right and good and pure and mine. And I got there by adding together like Brad Mullen's style and some of the strat and all the things I learned from Jason Spadafora and everything I've learned from Shark Trader, and all of those things combined into my own like pure style of trading. But I mean, that just came from putting in a lot of work and taking a lot of bad trades.
That is beautiful. And that's actually like, it comes with the game. We all tell traders that you're not going to win every single trade. Losing is a part of the game. But as long as you're able to come back from those losses and you're able to learn from those losses, then like at the end of the day, it's going to be beneficial, and you're going to become a better trader, and you will become profitable. That's what I like to say. And you did say how like you now implemented your own strategy, and the strategy is now working for you. And within that strategy, you started to implement the strat. Is it true that you just recently learned the strat?
I am learning. I'm
Okay.
learning the strat.
Nice.
AdexTrades and Strat
Yeah.
Soldier and Rob have all come on the podcast, and I've learned from them, and I've made some headway into it. I'm not a strat expert, but I think it makes a ton of sense. And like, man, if I haven't started taking some trades when it breaks above the previous candle's high of the previous daily candle's high of day or whatever, like I love that tight stop loss. I'm a big fan, but I'm also like having to do it my own way. I can't just do the exact strat. I got to do like the Blayne version of the strat, like a psychopath, but
Like a psychopath. Yeah,
That's
and that's the nice thing about the strat is I think there's a lot of pettiness going on right now, like in the FinTwit community about the strat and whether it works or whether it doesn't work and blah, blah, blah. But the fact that you've already been able to see that, you've had me and Strat Soldier on, and you were able to understand price action better, and I could break it down to you like you were 3 years old, remember? So it's like, if once you get that and you can then start adding the lipstick to it, making it look pretty and adding your own voice to it and really, really dialing in your style, but revolving around price action, because price action precedes everything. And that's kind of what stratters believe. But that's why we have a whole different type of, we have an array of people that we bring on, is because there are different styles. And, for me personally, I can't speak for everybody else, but, I've been around for 13 years. I've been able to see everybody's trading styles. And if it works for them, then great, it works for them. But with the people that are still trying to find a way to, like you said, find their voice, and I use that term a lot as well, when they're trying to find their voice, I always, if anybody's lost right now, I tell them to just focus on the price action. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about indicators and things like that. But if you've started in the world of indicators and different patterns and MACDs and RSIs and stuff like that, it is hard for people to change that, because it feels like they've just invested so much time and most of the time and money into these ways of trading that they don't want to let go of it. So it's very hard for somebody to just be like, okay, I'm going to start from scratch, I'm just going to learn the strat and then build from there, where I would honestly recommend that. But as long as you're willing to put that time and effort, like you said, you got to start somewhere, and it's going to look ugly. And as long as you work at it and you find your voice in the market and you find the way that makes sense to you, then trading all of a sudden clicks and it starts to make sense and things are less stressful. And that's, it's awesome that you've been able to find that, and you're still trying to find it and still working at it. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Not really a question, but sorry. It's just more props for you
there. So for a new trader, Penny, would you recommend the strat to them?
Yeah,
For
I think
the
it's
beginner trader?
for sure. I think I have not found another way of learning trading that is like, put your stop loss here and take a trade when this happens and look for this. Like, it's a very, what's the phrase we like? If this, then that, which, I love. My favorite way of trading, and I think the strat does that very well.
What guidelines would you tell newer traders to follow?
It took me a really, really, really long time to understand about taking the same position size and not oversizing. Like, I mean, it took me probably 18 months to really understand what that meant. So that's probably what I would say is, like, no matter what you're trading, try to put, if it's $100 every trade, that's fine. If it's $200 every trade, whatever it is, but just be very consistent with that, because you're just not going to become a millionaire overnight. This is a grind. You have to show up and be consistent day in, day out, be your best. And you're going to do it little by little with, base hits and just compounding your gains. So I would say, please don't full port. Please don't half port, especially in this market.
Is it true that you used to take over 100 trades a day?
Yeah, I'm sure that's right.
Can you explain like what you mean by that? And like what trades were you taking?
Well, when I was doing penny stocks, it's super easy to do. I mean, if you're scaling in and scaling out, maybe it wasn't 100, but like 60 is probably super accurate, because you could just like scalp all day long on penny stocks, especially in 2020, early 2021, when things would just run. I mean, you'd be like, well, if it's going to come back down here to $4, I'm going to load the boat again and then take the trade again. And it was stupid, but that's what I was doing. It's very hard to be consistently, I found it hard to be consistently profitable that way. Like now, if I take 3 trades, I'm kind of like, whoo, should I have stopped at 1? Like, I've really scaled it back, but I also don't have the same amount of money that I had when I was doing that. I mean, I just had a margin account and so much power, which I have to be a lot more selective now.
Which would you say has more weight in your trading, technical or fundamental analysis?
Oh, technical for sure.
Why is that?
That's just the way I was taught. That's just the way,
Nice.
that's just the way I trade. Yeah.
Do you consider fundamental analysis at all in your trading?
No.
Nice. And then,
So,
oh yeah, Ajit?
go ahead. You're good.
Oh, no, I was just going to segue to another question. Which indicators do you use the most? Like besides the strat, what other indicators are you using the most? Because I know you are a fan of like the 20 EMA.
Yep, I love the 20 and I like the whole wave quite a bit.
The whole wave?
Yeah, but that
Yeah, the HULL.
whole. Yes.
Oh, whole. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I don't really like to tell people that because I have this one that Shark Trader gave me, and I guess it's his like personal one, and people have asked me how to install it, and I don't really know. I don't know what it is or how to install it or how to help or anything like that. But it's sort of like all the indicators in one. I guess if someone knows more than me, they can certainly, it's like the average of all the indicators, and it will turn from green to orange to red. And it is a very, very good way of grabbing a reversal or like grabbing a bottom, and or showing when the stock is like getting exhausted or getting tired or going to pull back. Or it's just like it's a really nice indicator and can help you do things. And I really like now, I also spent a really long time being like, well, I'll take either I don't trade commons anymore, but I'll take commons or I'll take a call when it breaks this level. I thought that I was a breakout trader, which I'm not. And it has burned me a lot in this market doing that. So, I'm much more likely to like take puts at the very top or take calls at the very bottom just because the risk to reward is so much better. And if I get stopped out, that's fine. But taking a level break and thinking it's going to hold that level and keep on running has burned me a lot in this market. So.
And since you did say that you're an intraday swinger,
sure.
Which time frame are you paying attention to the most, or which time frame are you taking your trades on?
The 15's my main time frame, but I also really like the 4 hour. Honestly, I love to switch on over to the 4 hour and see how we're doing.
So that's kind of great that you bring that up, though, because multiple time frames. Everybody always asks me, what's your preferred time frame to trade on? And like you, I love the 15-minute. The 15 minutes like my favorite. That's my Goldilocks scenario here. And so I love the 15, but you still have to pay attention to all those higher time frames to see where you're at and see where market participants are at. Because you don't want to just go in blindly on a 15-minute, not knowing what's going on the hour, the 4 hour, the day, and then really seeing where price is at comparable to that.
Totally.
But that's spot on, man.
Do you incorporate flow into your trading at all?
No, I don't understand flow, and I tried, and I don't get it. And I don't really understand flow.
How do you manage your risk in these market conditions? Like, what is your rules when it comes to stop losses?
That is probably like my biggest weakness, honestly, is because I don't have a specific, like, I'm going to cut if it doesn't hold this level, or which I do a lot, or like if it gets back above the 20 and holds on the 15, or like I know when I take the trade, when I will cut the trade. And I try not to let any of my trades go below about 10 or 15%. But like, I'm honestly, stop losses are not, it's not my strength, which if stop losses are your strength, then you're going to be an amazing trader. But it is the thing I'm working on the most right now.
Are you using mental or physical stop loss for that 10, 15%?
So, I mean, ideally, I would not ever like it to get that low. I usually use mental ones though. But if I'm up even like $50 on a trade, like you better bet that stop's going to like plus $2 or something. Like I want to give it enough room to develop, because especially since I said I like to be in the trade longer. But like, I don't know if anything feels worse than being up $50 and losing 150 when you so easily could have just made like $2 on it. So I'm pretty strict about once it goes green, making sure it stays green.
Defending your positions with tight stops.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Penny, we have about 15 minutes left in this space. Do you mind if some audience members come up to ask you some questions?
Sure.
Perfect, perfect. Anyone in the audience, if you would like to ask Penny a question, feel free to request and we will have you on board. In the meantime, what advice, I guess this would be the last question I would ask, what advice would you give to the new trader, specifically how to stay profitable in this market? After you've developed your strategy, after you understand like where your stop losses are placed, how do you stay profitable?
I stay profitable by taking one good trade a day and then walking away. Like, greed is so, I get super greedy, and I know that from journaling that like my best trades, I trade it open and then I take that one trade and I walk away. And if I take another trade, like 9 out of 10 times, I'm going to give that money back. So I'm at my best. I'm at my most clear. I make my best decisions that very first trade of the day. And if I can take that trade and then walk away, then that's how I've been building my account.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for that, Penny. And like, I also say that as well. It's usually when I'm trying to take that third or fourth trade of the day where I'm usually giving my money back to the market. And I think a lot of beginner traders struggle with the fact that like, once you make your money, if you made your money in the first 30 minutes of the day, you're done. You can walk away. There's no reason why you feel like you need to take a new trade. Oftentimes, like I'll see some traders say like, oh, what play we taking next? Like, there's no play that we're taking next. This is choppiness in the market. It's lunchtime. There's no reason to like put your money in here. So just wait it out. Wait for another setup that will present itself tomorrow, that will present itself next week, because not all times the market will be presenting itself in the opportunity for you to make money. So that's a great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Any audience members before OG and Zeus give their last questions and last remarks? If anyone has any questions, feel free to request. OG, I'll give it to you. And
No,
Zeus
I
as
was,
well.
I was just going to say, Penny is used to the one asking the questions. Now she's on this side. Nobody wants to ask her questions. What's going on?
I know,
Come
right?
on. Let's get some questions for Penny. I mean, unless we covered everything, which in trading, there is no way to cover everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much going on. But yeah, it's been a blast having you on. I just want to say that to begin with. And So with the questions that we've been asking, it's very related to trading. I have a question more related to your art. How did you get started with art? Like, was there, you just started doing it and then all of a sudden you just started selling it, or what? I'm mainly asking for my oldest daughter because she wants to be an artist. So now I got to get the lowdown on this stuff.
Sure. Happy to answer. So I knew that I wanted to be an artist or a photographer from like my first memory. I mean, I just knew that that was what I was supposed to be. And when I got to high school, I started taking photography classes, and then quickly like took all the photography classes in my high school by 10th grade, and was like, well, I'm not going to go the next 2 years and not do art. So then I I did a summer program and learned how to do oil painting. And then I worked as a photographer for 15 years. And working at something like that for me took a lot of the joy out of it, because it didn't, like, I was making money and paying my bills as a photographer. And that's sort of like the dream, but it wasn't really nurturing my creative side. So, and I was painting on the side, but I remember asking on Facebook one time, like, I knew how to paint. I knew all the fundamentals of painting. I know color. I knew how to do all that. And I asked on Facebook, like, hey, what could I paint that people would be interested in buying? And like, looking back, that makes me so embarrassed that I asked that, because that's just like the absolute wrong approach. And I say that a lot with the podcast too. Like, people don't really know what they want until you show them what they want. And I felt like that with the show. I don't think there's a ton of other trading shows out there like mine, like led by a woman, led by someone who's figuring it out day in, day out. But it has become relatable, and people want to listen to it because they don't feel intimidated. And I think with the art, I had to like literally work through so many bad paintings. I could show you paintings that are just like horrific in order to find a way that I felt I could very firmly stand on my own 2 feet and put it out there. And things did not start selling like hotcakes. I mean, it was a weird style. It is a weird style, and it took a little time for people to start buying them. But then I think they buy them now because it's such an authentic, like, soulful piece of art, and people want that. They want authenticity. That's the thing I think people crave more than anything. So my advice to a young artist would just be like, my very, very, very favorite quote in life is, when the muse comes, let the muse find you working. So just work, just paint, just take pictures, just put out a podcast, just work. And like, I have also found in my life, the harder I work, the luckier I get, the better the paintings get, the better the podcast gets. Like, you just got to get through the hard shit. And I think that's the same with trading too. But it's hard. Life is hard. Art is hard. Podcasting is hard. Trading is hard. But just, I don't know, you got to keep doing it. But being an artist, it's hard because it's personal.
Yeah, you put so much of yourself in it that I can't imagine what it's like when somebody, well, you almost feel like a sense of rejection almost when you're putting your whole heart out there and it's not being accepted. You kind of feel down. But I think the nice thing about that though is that it's built in resilience that you've found with, like you said, with life in general, with podcasts, with trading, with art, with everything. As long as you're pushing towards your goal, you're going to be further ahead of somebody that just wishes they were in your position and not doing anything about it.
Totally.
So that's awesome. That's a great perspective on life. And the fact that you said you seems like you get luckier the harder you work. And the one quote that I like that I tweeted out once was that that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So if you're preparing and an opportunity arises, then you're going to be one step ahead of the person that's just waiting for their luck to show up. And so that's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we got a request, so I can stop talking now.
Brain drain.
Brain drain.
Yes, yes, yes. I will add you as a speaker. Feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, hi, Penny. I kind of want to know what your thoughts are on NFTs as an artist.
Oh, interesting. I did a line of NFTs and put a lot of effort into creating them and minted them and put them out there, and they didn't really sell, but I felt like I had to do the NFTs because I had a trading podcast and I was an artist, and like, what if it was the next big thing? And I did not, take that step. And I think that what's happening with NFTs in the fashion world, and especially like the sneaker world, which I'm very, very into sneakers. And I think it's like nice handbags. You get the handbag, you get the minted NFT of it. I think that owning an NFT like that, when you get a physical product with it and having it be written in the blockchain as like you own this, I think that's incredibly interesting. I think if you bought an original piece of art and you got an NFT of that original piece of art, I think that's a viable, kind of amazing thing. I don't know after watching it how much I buy into the all you get is the digital piece of art without a physical asset. And that's a very, very personal opinion, but I think that's where I stand on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question. Do we have any other questions? Any of the audience members want to ask Penny a question before we conclude the episode of the Strat Talk? Any? And OG, if you had anything to say, Zeus, if you had anything to say before we leave, before we end this.
Yes, thank you a lot, Penny, for coming out on the Strat Talk.
Oh, I was happy to do it. I appreciate you having me.
I really enjoy your insight.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will echo the same thing. It's awesome because we finally got you on the opposite side of that microphone, so that was amazing. And now you felt the pressure that I felt. No, I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, it's great, and I appreciate all the advice that you give out, because I think with you and I as well, talking with a lot of there are just so much younger people out that don't have kids, that don't have the experiences that we have, where we have to really regiment our schedules because we don't want to take time away from our kids and things like that. It was great to hear that, and it was pretty refreshing to hear others say the same things that I talk about as well, with making sure you're managing your time, and all these things that I do on YouTube and with the CPO group, with the AdexTrades group and everything, is taking time away from the kids, and I almost have to like sit back and think, these are the times where they're growing up. I don't want to waste it either, but at the same time also, make a living and help people out and do all sorts of stuff. So it is a very thin, fine balance that has to happen. So it was good to hear that.
I have found, so my kids are 8 and 6, and I don't know if you've seen on Twitter, but I am trying. My biggest, like, ultimate dream in life is to have my own line of sneakers, like high top basketball sneakers. I'm just willing it to happen. I want it so bad, and I want like my art to be on there. And so I've been creating the shoes and then wearing them around, acting as if like, I'm trying to manifest it. I'm like, oh, I already got the sneaker line. I'm wearing these shoes. And my daughter went to camp the other day, and part of the sneakers, I have like little clip-on things that go on the sneakers. They're like personalized. They're little clips basically. And my daughter was going to camp the other day and put a bow on her sneaker. And I was like standing upstairs, but I could see them. And my husband was like, "Oh, Quinn, why'd you put a bow on your sneaker?" And she was like, "Oh, I just want to be like mommy." So I think it's like amazing how much they see. And if there's one thing that I could teach my children, I really do believe in the value of hard work and following your dreams and like leaving it all on the table. Like, I'm never ever going to look back at the podcast or trading or art and be like, could I have given it more? And the kids are living that with me. They celebrate every success. They know about the things that don't go well. They're watching their mother build a business and a brand, and they're so involved in that. So I think modeling that behavior is the best thing you could ever give your kids.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Penny. Thank you. Doug, we have Doug Allen here. He has a question as well.
Sure.
Feel free to unmute your mic.
Not really. I don't have any question at all. Just I'm trying to greet everybody. How is everyone here?
Good. How are you doing?
You're doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great. How about you?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, if that's the case, that will be the conclusion of episode 7 of the Strat Talk. Thank you, Penny, for taking the time out of your day to speak with us. We love your story. This was amazing. How can the audience members reach you, or do you have any last words you'd like to say? Tell the people what you have going on.
You can follow me on Twitter. That's the best way. You can follow Penny Lane Podcast and subscribe to it so you get notifications. The episodes come out on Monday and Thursday. And then I've just started a new thing sponsored by TrendSpider that on Tuesday and Thursday, me and my friend Shark Trader are doing a show, just a 30-minute YouTube live recap called Trade versus Trade, where we go over our best and worst trades of the day. And that show is just developing, but it's fun, and he's a good friend of mine, so we're enjoying chatting it up and seeing who's trading better every day.
That sounds amazing. I'll definitely be there for that. Definitely be there for that. And thank you to my fellow co-hosts of the panel, OG and Zeus. Make sure to give them a follow as well. Thank you to everyone in the audience, and thank you to those that asked questions. We appreciate you all for joining and listening into our 7th episode of the Strat Talk. Of course, we're going to have this space recorded. And for those of you...
Let me cut in real quick because you're being a little too humble. You're being a little too humble. Let's plug the strat chat that's going on tonight. There's a strat chat going on tonight where your man over here, Adex, is getting interviewed by me and the Sepia group at the strat chat tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. So make sure that you are tuned into that. Make sure you register at the Sepia group. And, Adex is a humble guy, so he wasn't going to brag about it, but I'm going to cut in and tell you guys that he's getting interviewed. And so it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna be talking about how to actually utilize options in leveraging your portfolio and doing it the smart way rather than gambling that everybody likes to call option trading.
Damn, bro, you had to say it.
I did.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you, man. And so thank you all for being here. Of course, we're going to have this space recorded. And for those of you that are interested in joining our Discord and learning about the strat, feel free to click the link in our bio to join. Good luck this week, everyone, and have a great rest of your Sunday. Thank you again, Penny. You have a great rest of your Sunday as well.
Thanks.
I'll see you all later.
Okay, bye.